Hey, what's up guys, it's Disturbed, and today I'm going to be showing you an amazing DPS build for patch 1.2 that can do insane amounts of damage while still being super tanky. I've tested all the new gear sets and everything else like that, and this set is still the best way to set it up. If this video helps you out, please drop a like as it does really help, and subscribe for videos just like this one. With that out of the way, let's get right into it. Alright, so before I get into the build, I just want to say a few things first. For one, I need to mention that the DPS stat doesn't mean anything. A lot of you might look at my DPS stat and think it's garbage and I don't know what I'm talking about, but in truth, that DPS stat is actually broken and it doesn't portray your actual amount of damage per second. For just a little quick example, my DPS isn't even affected by what gear set I use, and I guarantee, critical hit damage and just flat out damage increase does increase my DPS. So just please don't listen to that stat. I know a lot of people that fixate on it and they only build their character based on that stat, and in turn are like making a really bad build to themselves. If you want an accurate representation of like actually how much damage you're doing, you can go to divisiondps.com, or you can just like test how much damage you're doing against target dummies and the normal enemies. And another thing is that my gear isn't perfect, and I'll explain how it can be improved upon later in the video. So without further ado, let's get right into the build. So in terms of firearms, your stamina, and your electronics, you're not going to be stacking any electronics. And then for your firearms and your stamina, I genuinely like to have it balanced with just a little bit more stamina so I can be at over 80k health. The reason I have more stamina right now is just because I have mods with armor in them that are mostly stamina. I'm struggling to get some firearms mods with armor in them. I will be grinding for those a little bit later. But you're going to be trying to get over 75% armor. I would be at probably like 73 or 74 if I get that firearms mod with armor in it, and then if I got another 240 piece with just a little bit of extra armor upgrade, I'd probably be at about 75%. So you want to get to 75%, and I'll go over exactly how you can do that while maintaining a lot of damage. So also, let me just show you my health real quick. Survivability, max health 87.9k. So as you can see, I'm pushing about 88k right now, and with the addition of level 34 enemies in the dark zone, you can die like really quickly, so having that extra toughness is really helpful. So obviously for your primary weapon, you're going to be using an SMG. I got this AUG with 22% crit chance, brutal, vicious, and meticulous. Other good things you can get are destructive, you can get deadly, which I have on here, self-preserved, there's responsive, and predatory I think is good if I remember that talent. I don't know, there's a few really good ones, but brutal is by far I think the best. And then fierce is also nice, but only if it's a third talent or the third one, so you don't have to stack any fear or any electronics. And vicious isn't bad either, so just try to get one with at least one good talent. For modding it, you want headshot damage and crit chance on the scope. For the mag, you can either use rate of fire or critical hit damage. If you're using a vector, I would say critical hit damage, and then if you're using an MP5 or an AUG, I'd say rate of fire because of the bigger mags, and you can just do a lot more damage that way. And then for your underbarrel, you want hip fire accuracy, I think, because when spraying it's helpful, and accuracy. If you want horizontal stability and accuracy, go for it. It doesn't really matter that much. For your muzzle, you want stability and critical hit damage, or just one with critical hit damage on it. Up to you. And then for your secondary weapon, I would definitely recommend using an M1A. You can use an AR, but M1As are just way better. The DPS stat on this is really low. I don't even understand why, because I can crit by like 3 times as much as the DPS stat suggests. So I don't know, that's weird, but try to get one with brutal on it and capable. Capable, I made a separate video about. It just is kind of like the new balance, so it's pretty nice. And then for your secondary, I got a little double-barreled sawed-off. Doesn't really matter because I like literally never use it. Alright, so going into your gear sets, there's 2 different ways that you can compile this. One way is for player versus environment, like incursions, and then the other way is player versus environment in the dark zone. The reason these are different is because in the hard mode incursion, most of the enemies are purple, and that you don't get a bonus for extra damage to elites, but then in the dark zone, almost all the enemies you're killing are yellow. So for hard mode incursion, you're going to want to be using 3-set striker with 2 sentry and savage gloves, because you don't need the 3-set bonus from from sentry, the 20% damage to elites, because you won't be getting extra damage on those hard mode enemies. And then you get the extra 14% critical hit chance from your savage gloves. And then if you're going in the dark zone, I'd say use Sentry's Call just 3-set sentry, 3-set striker for the extra 20% damage to elites. But if you want to build this better just all around for killing all enemies, I would say the way I have it set up is nice. I actually can't use 3-set sentry and 3-set striker right now because I play a lot of the hard mode Incursion, and I also just like having the extra crit chance, and it would just be a pain in the ass to move my build. So I would definitely suggest using it the way that I have it set up right now. So going into the individual stats on every single piece of gear, you have to have it set up pretty much just like this if you want to get the max armor while still sustaining a good amount of damage. So for your chest piece, you want armor, and then damage to elites is really nice. You get extra 9%. You can also switch that for exotic damage resilience or protection from elites if you want to get a little bit more tankier, and then you can get that mod slot. Then for your mask, I have 2 mod slots so that I can get extra armor. The reason I'm not using crit chance is because I don't think it's that necessary right now. It's only like 5%, and when I have as much crit damage as I do, the ratio is already really crazy. And I mean, I'm just doing so much damage anyways, and it's nice to have that extra armor, so I'm using the extra mod slot on that. So just try to get 2 mod slots on that if you can. Otherwise, just get crit chance in 1 mod slot. For your knee pads, these are really important. You want to get armor and critical hit damage. You don't want a mod slot. And then for your minor attributes, try to get enemy armor damage. The reason you need armor for this is because you pretty much need this to reach armor cap. You can also do this on a backpack. You can do the same thing. So backpack and knee pads are basically interchangeable. Just get one of them with armor and critical hit damage, and the other one can have critical hit damage and a mod slot. Or what you can do is have both of these have armor and critical hit damage, and then just don't have any mod slots with extra armor, and then you can just stack those mod slots with critical hit chance. Just make sure that it works for your build. Kind of a pain in the ass to do it like that, but there's multiple different ways you can set it up. So just wanted to make that clear. And then for your gloves, these are really important. You want to get savage gloves, which increase your crit chance by 14% against almost all enemies. And then what you want as major attributes are pretty much needed. You want critical hit damage, damage to elites, and critical hit chance. Reason you don't want SMG damage because of flat out 10% damage. It's just a lot nicer. And if you're not going to be using sentry, you definitely want that. And then for your holster, it doesn't really matter. Just try to get armor on it. And then if you're already a max armor from other things, then I guess you can just go for a mod slot. Just make sure it has all 3 stats. You can get it to where it doesn't have all 3. I thought I had one in my inventory, but I don't. But if it doesn't have all 3, it's pretty much complete garbage. So, excuse me, that's pretty much all you want in terms of your gear. You want to have it set up just like this so that you can do a lot of damage. The reason you're using 3-set striker is for 20% enemy armor damage and 50% critical hit damage. And obviously for 2-set sentry, you get 30% headshot damage. Now if you want to, you can switch out 2-set sentry for 2-set final measure, which gives you a do I have a piece in here just to show you? Yeah, I do. Which gives you 50% exotic damage resilience if you're really worried and you want to be a little bit tankier. But I like the way that I have it set up, and I like to be able to deal a lot of extra damage, so that 20% headshot or 30% headshot damage is really helpful. So that's pretty much it for the gear. If you want to look at my stats right quick, I got crit damage 185%, crit chance 50%, headshot damage 154%, and then this crit chance or crit damage will go up to over 200 if I use a magazine with additional damage or critical hit damage. Anyways, moving on to your abilities. You want to be using Pulse with Tactical Scanner. The reason for this is because you're getting additional crit chance and additional critical hit damage, and since you're using an SMG, you're getting just a crap load of extra damage with critting. And with those Savage Gloves, you're critting almost every single hit when you pulse, so you're just doing insane amounts of damage. And then for your first aid, I basically have to use this now with Overdose because the enemies now in the Dark Zone literally can 2-shot you. So using this with Overdose is really nice. I just had that for PvP on. But using this with Overdose is really nice because you can get in really sticky situations where you can just get like one-shotted. So it's really nice to have those. Other things that are decent is Sticky Bomb with Flashbang for CC and Seeker Mine with gas, but I think these are just way far superior. Obviously you want to be using Survivor Link. In terms of your talents, you want to be using On the Move, kill a hostile while moving to reduce incoming damage by 30% for 10 seconds. Basically, when you're using an SMG, you're pretty much always running and killing people. So you're just going to like shoot somebody and then instantly get 30% reduced damage, which is really nice. and you pretty much need that now, since, as I said before, enemies can one-shot you. And then for the next talent, you want headshot a hostile to pulse them for 10 seconds. This will actually, when you headshot somebody and you haven't used your pulse, this will add the base pulse, which is without tactical scanner, so it gives you 16% crit chance and 32% crit damage on any enemy that you're shooting if you hit them in the head first, and it lets you see them through walls. So it is really helpful, just flat out extra damage. And then the next one you're going to be wanting to use is One Is Done. Headshot a hostile that have a 50% chance of not consuming the bullet. This is really nice, so you basically can just shoot at an enemy in the head, and if you're spraying at that enemy in the face, they basically, you're just recycling bullets right back into your mag, so you can shoot even more. And then the next one, which is probably the best, Combat Medic. Use a med kit near allies to heal group members and proxies within 20 meters by 40%. You might think that this doesn't actually work if you're not with a group, but it actually, what it does is, even by yourself, it will basically just buff your med kit by 40%. And with the skill power that you have, it pretty much already gives you 60%, so you're basically just putting yourself to 100%. So using this is just an instant revive, just gets you full health again, so it's really nice to be using that. So that's pretty much it in terms of the talents, and if you want to see my damage, this is just that. Now, I'm getting 83k crits, and with my pulse, I'm getting 95k crits, and that's not even taking into account the fact that I have an additional 20% damage to elites and an additional 30% enemy armor damage, so you basically just buff that by 50% damage, and that's how much I'm doing, which is actually a crazy amount of damage. So definitely this build is amazing. Alright, so that's pretty much all you need to know. Just make sure to set it up the way that I have it. I know it can take a really long time, but it's totally worth it because you can be doing insane amounts of damage when you have it set up perfectly. Anyways guys, that's it for me. Again, I hope this video helped, and if it did, please drop a like and subscribe for videos similar to this one. See you later guys.